vision, leadership, workplace-related topics. The Voices of Victory podcast show. Subscribe today. Let's go.
Vision, leadership, self-esteem, workplace-related topics.
Subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision,
Voices of Victory.
leadership,
Voices of Victory.
workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario Di Leone.
Hello and welcome to Voices of Victory podcast. I am your host, Mario Di Leone, and today's topic is cybersecurity essentials for the remote workplace. And this is going to be a micro insight edition. So we're going to have 4 parts to each aspect, which is the problem, the mindset, the action, and execution. Well, starting off with the very first one, which is employees. The first problem is employees accessing sensitive data on unsecured personal devices. Now, the mindset should be that protecting data starts with securing every device that accesses it. That's so crucial and so important and so forgotten. Now, the action you can take is we have to be able to mandate the use of company-approved security software and VPN networks. The execution of it would be to provide employees with clear guidelines and pre-configured security tools to install on their devices. Very important. The next problem is phishing attacks. Phishing with a PH, it's targeting remote workers through email or messaging platforms. So the mindset is that we need awareness. Awareness is the first line of defense when it becomes a cyber threat. Now, for the action, conducting regular phishing simulation tests, and of course, provide training to identify these suspicious messages, because a lot of these attacks can indeed rely on a social aspect of it. Now, the execution of it is that we got to schedule monthly workshops to teach the employees actually how to spot and report potential phishing attempts. And by the way, if the organization doesn't have a phishing email that you could use to report or forward these kind of things, then it's a good idea to actually have one. I've worked for companies that didn't have one. You know, they would say, oh, we'll send it to so-and-so. We'll give it to this person, you know, it was like, but having a particular email would be good. Now, why is an email good? Because guess what? You could have clients or customers that get things and they need an outlet as well. So it's not just internal, it's also external as well. Now, that being said, let's go over to the next problem. The problem that's next is a weak or reused passwords for accessing company systems remotely. Now, the mindset is that strong passwords are simple yet a critical layer of security. Now, the action with this is enforce a password policy requiring maybe more complexity. Now, from what I've seen over the years, anytime you want your password security to go up, a number, a capital letter, and a special symbol, okay? A number, a capital letter somewhere in there, and a special symbol, like a $ or a hashtag or something along those lines, right? You could use password generators online that generate a very long one. I mean, that I'm just going to leave up to you. Some people don't want to do that or don't feel comfortable about that, but just know and understand over the years, what I've seen is having that number, special symbol, and a capital letter. So we have to enforce a password policy that requires complexity and regular updates, right? So in other words, changing it every quarter, changing your password every quarter. Some people don't like that. They don't like the fact that there's change, right? And especially if they're using their password as a means to punch in and punch out of work, it can be pretty frustrating when they have to punch in 5 minutes and suddenly they have to change their password. Without warning, by the way. You know, they're warning you on the website, but not warning you in the email. So it's something to consider. So you can implement a password manager or have a 2FA, two-factor authentication for all accounts. That would be a good thing. Now, the next problem is a lack of secure Wi-Fi networks in employees or remote work environments is that when people are working remotely, they're working from home, and the mindset should be that a secure network is really the foundation of safe remote work. So the action to take is providing some guidance to your employees to secure their home routers and recommend WPA3 encryption. It's a thought, right? The execution of it could be offering a step-by-step instruction or IT support on how to help employees update those settings. Now, the next problem is employees downloading unauthorized software or using unsafe applications. This happens a lot. It's like, oh, I could do what I want. They have that mentality. And quite honestly, they may have that mentality, but they don't know who they're hurting. So the mindset is controlled software usage because it does minimize vulnerabilities. Now, the action to take would be to implement an approved applications list and restrict access to unsafe downloads. Now, the execution of it is use endpoint management tools to monitor and control software installations. That's what would be a big deal, right? The next problem is failure to update software and systems regularly, which can lead to vulnerabilities. And the mindset here is regular updates. They're essential to stay ahead of the threats. Now, the action is to automate the updates for operating systems and, of course, critical software. Now, the execution of it is you got to configure remote network devices to receive updates during non-work hours. It would be good. The worst thing is you're getting a software update at 12 noon or middle of your day while you're in the middle of something, and it just pops up and automatically starts installing stuff when it starts slowing the computer down and throwing off everything, right? So yeah, that's a problem. Now, another problem would be insufficient protection for sensitive company data, especially data that's been shared remotely. Now, the mindset with this is literally understanding that data integrity relies on secured sharing practices. And the action is you should use encrypted file sharing platforms and limit permissions to need-to-know access, okay? Now, the execution of that is that you got to train employees to use company-approved platforms for sharing sensitive information. Now, a major problem is that employees can be unaware of the risks of public Wi-Fi networks. They go to a coffee shop with their laptop, right? And the mindset is public networks can be a gateway for cybercrime and cyber criminals. It can be a gateway to vulnerability. So the action is really prohibit the use of public Wi-Fi for work purposes, or just simply require VPN. I mean, it's not hard to do, right? And the execution of it should be educate the employees on the actual risks and provide VPN access, for secure connections. The problem with cybersecurity training that I've seen, some companies will treat it like just a checkbox. Oh, and by the way, it's a checkbox that it's like the last thing on the list. It's a nice to have. It's nice to have cybersecurity, right? It's like, I've seen that before. Very large companies actually where they're just like, just make sure you put, just push through it. Just push through it. Like, in other words, just go through the motions of your training and don't learn anything. I've seen that before. And quite honestly, it's dangerous. So when we take a look at monitoring, another problem is a lack of monitoring for suspicious activity on remote devices, right? So the mindset here is visibility is crucial to identifying and responding to threats, right? Now, the action that you can take with that is deploy endpoint detection and response, or what we call EDR solutions, and that's to monitor activity. The execution of it is really set up some alerts for unusual activity and establish a response plan for incidents. Everybody should know what those plans are, by the way, or at least some teams should. That's the good news here. Now, the last problem of them all is unclear or outdated cybersecurity policies for remote work. That remote work is changing, it's evolving, and guess what? The policy should evolve too. And the mindset is having those clear guidelines. Like, people will know what to do. They know the guidelines. Maybe there's SOPs for handling data. So we should empower employees to protect the company's assets, right? And the action is update and communicate cybersecurity policies specifically for remote work scenarios. The execution of that is distribute SOPs and updated policies and require acknowledgement, meaning they have to check off a box or sign a sheet that will follow up with training sessions, right? So we want to acknowledge that they fully understand and comprehend. And by the way, when they fully do the training, it should not be passive. I've seen cybersecurity training for organizations be very passive because the employees think it's very dry. It's very dry, boring technology information, right? I've seen some people fall into that, boredom realm. And what happens is they don't take it seriously. They just check off the box and move on. And it's still a risk at the end of the day. Like, it's to my belief and my understanding that it should be handled seriously and taken seriously. So having those follow-up training sessions are important. And that's it for today on this episode of the Micro Insights edition for cybersecurity. Have a great day. Take care.